Darkness at the break of noon, shadows even the silver spoon, the handmaid's blade, the child's balloon, eclipses both the sun and moon. To understand you know too soon, there is no sense in trying. Pointed threats they bluff with scorn, suicide remarks are torn. From the fool's gold mouthpiece the hollow horn plays wasted words, proves to warn that he not busy being born is busy dying. Bob Dylan. It's all right, Ma. I'm only bleeding. That is, in my opinion, one of the greatest existential poems in the English language, and it is no surprise to me that Bob Dylan won the 2016 Nobel Prize for Poetry. Every word tells, every line has impact, every setup leads to a brilliant and thought-provoking punchline, all while mimicking a stream of consciousness flow that makes the listener feel like he's on a life-altering psychedelic trip. But how does someone come up with a song like that? How the heck did Dylan write it?
Well, those early songs were like almost magically written. Darkness at the break of noon, shadows even the silver spoon, a handmade blade, a child's balloon. Try to sit down and write something like that. There's a magic to that, and it's not Siegfried and Roy kind of magic. You know, it's a different kind of a penetrating magic. And I did it. I did it at one time.
Even Bob himself doesn't know. In The Art of Fiction, the great author and writing teacher John Gardner says, "We often hear even modern writers speak of their work as somehow outside their control, informed by a spirit that, when they read their writing later, they cannot identify as having come from themselves." I've had this experience a number of times, and I imagine many of you have been writing for a while can say the same. Per Gardner, I imagine every good writer has had this experience. It testifies to the remarkable subtlety of fiction as a mode of thought. So if writing feels like a mysterious muddle to us sometimes, or all the time, the good news is it's supposed to. The elements of fiction are to a writer what numbers are to a mathematician. The main difference being that we handle fictional elements more intuitively than even the subtlest mathematicians handle numbers. In other words, writing is all about the art of abstraction. We take abstract principles and illustrate them through concrete characters and events, and we take individual experiences and use them to illustrate universal ideas. But unlike mathematics, there's no real formula for this. As writers, most of us work primarily through intuition, joining together the elements of fiction guided by training and instinct, and hoping that it all turns out well, that the product entertains, enlightens, feels true to life, no matter how fantastical the story details. So what are these elements of fiction? Well, for Gardner, they are the particles of action, or event ideas, particles that go to make up character, and particles that go to make up setting and atmosphere, aka mood. And these are all universal elements of fiction. They may be removed undamaged from one story and placed into another. In isolation, each element has relatively limited meaning. In juxtaposition to one another, the elements become more significant, forming abstractions of a kind, higher units of poetic thought. This is where Bob Dylan's brilliance comes from. Creating these abstractions, illustrating these abstractions through concretes. A writer's job isn't to invent from whole cloth. To be original doesn't mean reinventing the pen and jettisoning everything that came before. Per Gardner, no new elements are likely to be discovered. What writers do discover is new combinations. There's nothing new under the sun. But there are always new discoveries to be made about what is already there. Of course, this doesn't make it much easier. We have all the elements, sure, but again, there's no tried and true formula that's going to work for every story every time. The elements give us the craft, but the art is the way we tie those elements together into an organic unit. And for that, we are heavily reliant on the muse. What is this muse I speak of? Well, traditionally, the muses were goddesses of the arts, the daughters of Zeus, daughters of thought and memory, whose job it was to inspire poets and other artists to create memorable and lasting works. We imagine one muse for each major art form, and so we speak of the muse as the figurative source of our inspiration. But the muse is fickle and tough to entice. As Ray Bradbury states in How to Keep and Feed a Muse from Zen in the Art of Writing, the muse is that most terrified of all the virgins. She starts if she hears a sound, pales if you ask her questions, spins and vanishes if you disturb her dress. I've done a previous video all about Bradbury's take on this, but to sum it up here, he says that in order to keep a muse, you must first offer food. This food is all the impressions and experiences of life. We store these up in the lockers of our mind and trust that the muse will feed on them, and when it comes time to write, will use the energy this food gives her to provide us the type of writing and storytelling that touches on truth. For Bradbury, what is the subconscious to every other man in its creative aspect becomes, for writers, the muse. Now, I'm aware that this isn't the most practical of lessons. Unlike many of the writing techniques I teach, which are immediately useful, it's tough to break this one down into step-by-step practices that lead to relatively predictable improvement. This is a more heady and philosophical concept. It requires imagination. But if you examine the idea and take it to heart, like I try to, it can provide the encouragement to get any writer through the dark time. When the story is stalled and the words won't come, feed your mind. Go back into your experiences and your impressions, or go find some more, and then call on the muse and keep plugging away while paying close attention to the results you're getting, and let your story tell itself the way it needs to be told. Stephen Pressfield, author of The Legend of Bagger Vance, claims in The War of Art that he recites Homer's invocation of the muse before every writing session. He uses the T.E. Lawrence translation, but I kind of prefer the Robert Fitzgerald, so I'm going to give you that one. Sing in me, muse, and through me tell the story of that man skilled in all ways of contending, the wanderer, harried for years on end after he plundered the stronghold on the proud height of Troy. He saw the townlands and learned the minds of many distant men, and weathered many bitter nights and days in his deep heart at sea, while he fought only to save his life to bring his shipmates home. But not by will nor valor could he save them, for their own recklessness destroyed them all. Children and fools, they killed and feasted on the cattle of Lord Helios, the sun, and he who moves all day through heaven took from their eyes the dawn of their return. Of these adventures, Muse, daughter of Zeus, tell us in our time. Lift the great song again. Remember, writing is hard because it's supposed to be. And yet people from all walks of life have been doing it successfully for thousands of years. So can you. So can you. On this point, I recall Dylan's closing lines from It's All Right, Ma. And if my thought dreams could be seen, they'd probably put my head in a guillotine. But it's all right, Ma. It's life, and life only. Or as Prince put it in the Batman soundtrack, if a man is considered guilty for what goes on in his mind, give me the electric chair for all my future crimes. The muse is up there. You just have to draw her out. Who or what is your muse? Post your thoughts in the comments below, and like and subscribe to the channel while you're down there. And if you'd like even more of my musings, get it? Consider clicking the join button and becoming a member. You can support the channel and get some cool perks for starting as little as 99 cents a month, and I would ever so appreciate the help. But either way, guys, thank you for watching, and until next time, may the muse grant you good luck and good writing. Peace.